steak and Lay's chips packets and empty cartons of something or the other. Companies have responsibility. So that's part of the second box there. Then employees. How do you make sure that employees are working and living in a way that's appropriate for their well-being? Because if employees who are working for you aren't taken care of, there's a problem. Then stakeholders. How do you manage to deal with them? Human rights, which is for the larger community and the people you engage with. The environment, public policy, inclusive growth. That's the point where CSR fits in. How do you make sure that the government's inclusive development agenda is given a fillip through your efforts, both at the planning stage and by spending money? And finally, how do you deal with the customers? And how do you make sure that they always get value for money? So these are the 9 broad areas the principles cover. And here are the 9 principles. I will not elaborate them too much because you have these books with you as part of your handouts. But I will touch upon just a few of them very, very quickly. I want to take your attention to point number 1 first, principle number 1. The 3 key words there are ethics, transparency and accountability. What this really means is that you and your company will be accountable for what you do. You will try and be transparent, and you will make sure that what you do is known to everybody. You will not defraud willfully, and you will not hide facts from people. Very many times companies don't disclose all that they know about something. They just disclose the bare minimum and get away with that. We are saying that no, truly being a life-affirming business requires you to give all the facts to everybody, and that's critical. Then point number 2 we talked about briefly. Principle number 3 is quite appropriate. Principle number 4, a very, very critical principle. Principle number 4 says that you will not only be concerned and responsive to shareholders, but all stakeholders. Now this is a very, very important point even from the perspective of CSR. To determine what and where you will focus your CSR funds, every good company that is committed to the 5 aspirational aspects will have to engage with shareholders, in fact with stakeholders, and this process is called stakeholder engagement. You cannot possibly decide in a meaningful way what to do with your CSR funds unless you have a very robust process of stakeholder engagement. And what does it really mean? Ask them, how can we add value to your lives? How can we make your lives more joyful? How can we contribute in a meaningful way to improve the quality of your life? How can we make sure your kids are in a position to have a kind of a leg up in their future? So all these things are best spoken about. Very often in the past, when people wanted to do good, they'd say, oh, we know what's best for these guys. And you'd kind of dish out something and much of it was wasted. No longer. Now we are saying that every one of us is interconnected. Our lives are interconnected, and therefore it's important for you to figure out exactly what it is that the people want. So stakeholder engagement is critical, and that's what point number 4 refers to. And point number 4 has a very, very strong linkage with principle number 8. Principle number 4 and principle number 8. And I'll talk about that in a moment. Now principle number 5. You see, a lot of people are very scared of principle number 5. And the moment they say, oh my God, human rights, and they get very, very worried. But human rights, I want you to remember that India was one of the first signatories in the world of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights that was signed in 1948, as early as that. So India has really, we truly believe in this, so there's no need to be worried about it. And the worry comes from the fact that a lot of activists say, hey, you've done this, you've done that, and they get scared. But there's nothing to be scared about. Just approach this point with an understanding that every human being has rights. Every one of us. It doesn't matter what our gender is, what our nationality is. I mean, nationality of course Indian, but even if you have expats working for you, it doesn't really matter where you come from, your sexual orientation, the color of your skin, your background, it doesn't matter. You have got to respect diversity in whatever form it exists. Really something which can only happen if you as business leaders have an open mind. Because what you believe in will translate into a process in the enterprise and will become part of the DNA of the enterprise. I'm sorry to say, I have seen some companies where, depending on a person's caste, the salary structure is different, and I do not think that is a good thing at all. In this day and age, it is abhorrent, and I have no hesitation to say that, because this is the way we do not support one of the 5 aspirations, which is social justice or even spiritual well-being. If we all agree that we are, creations of the same beautiful existence, how does it matter? Things like caste and creed and color and nationality are all human creations. These are not given on birth. These happen because human beings have created this. So discard it completely and let your business be truly life-affirming in all its aspects. So that's principle number 5. Principle number 6, a very, very critical principle, and it is so critical to the well-being of life on planet Earth that even in schedule number 7 of the Companies Act 2013, rule number 135, this is mentioned as one of the areas where you can put your money. So even as your business will focus on this, it is so critical to our life and our well-being that you even have the freedom to spend more money on this, and the government will say, well done, you spent some money on principle number 6 as well. You get it? So this should give you an idea of how critical this is for our well-being and for well-being for our businesses. Number 7. Principle number 7 is very, very clear. If your business, as your business rightfully should, is in the process of engaging with the government, with ISCA or anybody else, please do so, but in a manner which creates goodness for all. It shouldn't be that you lobby only for your company. You must lobby for the greater good, and in a way that is responsible, open, transparent again, because all the other principles apply equally. Then number 8, this is critical. Principle number 4, principle number 8, very much intertwined, and principle number 8 is the principle from which CSR section 135 emanates and is integral with it. And don't forget that this is a subset. The CSR expenditure is a subset of this overarching umbrella of life-affirming guidelines and policies that your company has to adopt if it means to make India a nation where you don't have, burned out villages, fields which have become completely unfertile, water bodies that have dried up or become polluted. No nonsense world like that, and we certainly don't want to live in India like that. Then principle number 9. This is about creating value to their customers in a responsible manner. Again, this is about communicating and making sure that customers understand what you're doing. Now, I have a diagrammatic representation to show you this once again. Again, the analogies of a tree which is alive. Now, if you really want this tree to be alive, then the trunk, which is, say, a business represented by the trunk of the tree, it has to be connected with what gives life, which is when the planet, people, and living things thrive. If your business does not enable these to thrive, your trunk is disconnected. Then, if this tree has to grow, each of these principles, represented by a limb of this tree, has to grow and it has to flourish. And then, if the fruits of this tree are to be sold and you make money on that, Some of the fruits on limb number 8, principle number 8, had to be shared so that the people can be given this free and their well-being is enhanced, and that's the CSR. So this is really a diagrammatic representation, but the fundamental idea is your business has to be life affirming. The 5 ideas have got to be upheld, otherwise I don't know what else to say. Because if that isn't happening, then something is grossly wrong. I will now move on to an important part, which is what are the key aspects of the NBGs? 4 dimensions to be kept in mind. Number 1, the drive for sustainability and the drive for life affirming businesses has got to be led by upper management. That's why Dr. Chatterjee has also been speaking about the fact that the board is involved. And he of course frightened you this morning a little bit, but that's important to know because fear drives us all. But yes, upper management is responsible. They can't run away from this. So if you want your business to be truly life affirming, you have got to be able to get the whole organization from top down aligned with these ideas. Number 1. Number 2, integration. You can't pick up one principle and say, oh, I'm going to do just this because that's what I'm good at. I'm sorry. These principles are integral to the running of a successful life affirming enterprise. You cannot pick and choose. All 9 of them have got to be taken up together. They're integrated, they're integral, and the core elements and other details specified here have got to become part of your DNA, have got to become part of your processes in the organization. Number 3, principle number 4, that is engagement, continuous engagement with stakeholders. There is no better way to deflect criticism than to be open and to speak up and share and listen. And stakeholder engagement is not only about speaking, it is about listening as well. What do you guys want? How can we help you? How can we serve you? How can our enterprise really create value and wealth for all of us collectively? Then finally, disclosure and reporting. And this is a very, very important point, and I'm going to differentiate between the term disclosure and reporting. Every business has to share material information with all stakeholders, not the shareholders, all stakeholders. And it has to communicate what the business is doing well and what the business may not be doing well. So, for instance, we've been hearing a lot about automotive companies recalling products. Every automotive company has a right, in fact, every stakeholder has a right to know why is a recall happening. If a company simply recalls the vehicle, no one's going to be happy about it. There's going to be a trust deficit. And what is the difference between disclosure and reporting? I think this has been asked a number of times, and I want to therefore clarify this. You know, disclosure is like free information. The information that you give out as a means to build trust, as a means to forge a relationship. It's called free information. A disclosure is free information. And responsible businesses continuously serve and provide factual information, which is both positive and negative. Please mind the words. Disclosure requires that you give out information that is adverse to your business and its reputation, and even which is positive and good for it. And the idea is to build trust and to engage with your stakeholders so that they know. That is disclosure. But reporting is against specific standards, guidelines or metrics to demonstrate compliance, progress or a lack of it, or a combination of desirable or undesirable achievements for the benefit of regulators, stakeholders, investors and the like. So reporting is against standard. It's against Rule 135. You've got to report now. It's against the Companies Act. What do you do? But disclosures are critical for trustability. Now, having said that, how many of you are in favor of more sharing than less? Please show me with a show of hands, tell me all those in favor of more disclosures than less. Yeah, but I still see some hesitation. And that's understandable because people worry. What about my competitor? What about if somebody does a dharna and says, you've given out so much money, humko bhi dijiye? Well, that kind of stuff can happen. But look, ultimately, if you do not have the support of your stakeholders, your business has lost legitimacy. Remember this. Yeah. In fact, you talked about reputation in the previous section. The fact is, if you lose the trust of your customers or your vendors or your employees, you lost it. You really have lost it, because you have to have them on your side. The legitimacy of your business in the eye of society is assured only when they say, my God, what a great company you are. See, in Jamshedpur, where I served for about 17 years, Tata Steel was given the respect of an extraordinary kind. Those of us who are from the Tata group will know. Jamshedpur and Tata Steel, my God, there was not a whimper of dissent ever. Even though what the company did wasn't always right, and I know that. But there was a lot of sharing, a lot of, the community was part of your process. That has to remain. You cannot run a company these days anymore if you do not have social legitimacy. Remember this. The regulator, mind you, the regulator will do his job. But the regulator is always a few steps behind you. Don't ever forget this. That's why I'm saying principle number 1 is about you and not the regulator. Don't ever think that the Ministry of Corporate Affairs has long arms and will pick you up if you do something wrong. Sorry, this is about us. It's about creating a future for us, for our children and our grandchildren. If we do not run our enterprises in a way that creates a wholesome world, a wholesome nation, what kind of a future are we creating for our grandchildren? Think about it. And it's not about MCA or the registrar of companies in Kolkata who is going to send you a notice. It's about you. It's about you creating something which is worthwhile. So I am in favor of much more disclosure and reporting. Now, interestingly, and I'm very, very happy to say, thanks to Dr. Chatterjee's enormous vision and support to this whole process, SEBI has taken up the National Voluntary Guidelines in a big way.
Sir, one intervention, sorry.
Yes.
When you say disclosure of something negative,
yes,
or reporting something undesirable, illustratively, can you single out one example of how to disclose negative or undesirable?
Okay, let me give an example from Tata Steel. There is this is a true story, and I was involved, so I can share this with you. Tata Steel, those of you who are familiar with the steel making process know that there are big ladles full of hot metal that are sometimes taken from the ladle, not the ladle, the converters LD vessel which make the steel. Then you pour them into big buckets and transport them into the place where it's going to be poured into, for making continuous cast steel or whatever. It so happened that a young technician who was under the charge of the training department, for some reason, whether he was mentally upset or whatever, we don't know, he fell into it and he died on the spot. True and very, very tragic, very painful. And because this is so hot, nothing is left. The guy gets vaporized and is finished. I was the head of training. The moment I got this news, I immediately called the union people to me. I said, I don't know what has happened. I've just heard that this is the matter. Whether he jumped into the thing himself or God knows what, or he's fallen. It's a tragedy. You have got to understand that this could happen, but we have to investigate. I was obviously the personal director of the company fired me, said, ask you to talk to the union. I said, I thought it prudent to talk to the union, because if this doesn't get told to them right now, they'll think we're hiding something. Now, this, sir, is an example of where you proactively said something, because accidents can happen. For months thereafter, an investigation went on, and we never could find out really what happened. But by being upfront, it diffused a serious issue. The community was very, very aggrieved by all this. This company छिपा रही है कुछ, धक्का मारा किसी ने, anything can happen, and people are in their, they're legitimately allowed to do this. They can think about anything. It's up to us to make sure that we keep it right. So I was mentioning that thanks to the support that we've got all around for the NBGs, SEBI has introduced a clause 55 in the SEBI listing agreement for the companies that are listed on the stock exchange. And it says that listed entities shall submit as part of their annual reports business responsibility reports, or BRRs, describing the initiatives taken by them from an environmental, social and governance perspective in the format suggested under. And this is a circular dated August 13, 2012. And if you want to see more about this, please go to the website listed over there. It has everything given. And if you or your company is listed on the stock exchange, any stock exchange in India, you have got to be compliant with this. Now, what does this mean? On the CSR front, under Section 135 of the Companies Act, there is a reporting framework which Dr. Chatterjee shared with you. Under the Clause 55 of the listing agreement, there is another requirement that you have to follow to demonstrate what you're doing as part of your focus towards business responsibility. And ladies and gentlemen, what is the message? The message is, people want to know. The more you disclose, the more you serve the report, the more it figures on your websites, and the better you get at figuring out how you're managing your company. Now, you will also find in your handout material, there is this document called Business Responsibility India Survey 2013. This is a survey, and I'm sure Neha will talk about this in some detail. This is a survey of the reports submitted by these 100 listed companies, 98 actually, because 2 didn't respond. What they have done between August 13, 2012 and the first cycle, which was 1st April 2013 to 31st March 2014. So you can verify the details. Okay. But this is an indication. Now, if you have this in your hand, one quick look and you can say how the companies are doing generally on these parameters. So it's a very, very powerful means to again have companies make the transition in a proper fashion. So really, the structure of the BRRs: apply or explain, which means if you do what you have to do under these 9 principles, do them, or explain why you haven't done them or whether you plan to do them or whatever. As you can see, it is a gentle process of initiating transformation of the business processes towards a more life-affirming and sustainable driven company. Life-affirming and more sustainable. There are 4 parts to this document. Section D, Section A to C are about company size, people, what business you're in. Section D is the one that actually asks you to map the principles against what you have done. Do you have a policy? Do you have something that you've not done this year? Why not? Explain. And it has a linkage with the Global Reporting Initiatives G3 document, so that companies who already have been reporting under the Global Reporting Initiative, they don't have to necessarily do it twice. There's a linkage. You can submit either this or that, and you have done your bit. But please appreciate, you are using these mechanisms to build a coalition of support within the people who are impacted by what you do. And if that coalition of support is not there, your legitimacy to run your business is eroded. And I'm sorry to say that can really drive a business to bankruptcy. So now we will have some questions, because I'm done my presentation. So thank you for your attention, but let's have the next 8 or 10 minutes for some questions from the audience. Yes, ma'am. Do we have the mic, please? Yeah.
spoke about a company that clandestinely dug 6 bore wells to draw out water to give itself a wrong advantage over its competitors. Now, if that is so, then all the soft drink companies today would be guilty of the same thing, including the leading multinationals. So, what is your take on that? And another thing is, Dr. Chatterjee in his earlier presentation, I should have asked him the question at that time, but I didn't. He spoke adversely against the principle of tree plantation. He didn't advocate that tree plantation should not be done by all companies. But the government is promulgating it, saying that is the main cause of climate change. And our own company is taken up, you know, there's the publicity campaign that we'll plant 1 million trees or 10 million trees over the course of a certain number of years. So would you like to comment on these two?
Yes, I will certainly comment, and there is absolutely no contradiction between what Dr. Chatterjee said and what I'm saying. If you look at the 9 principles, there is a principle number 5 about the fact that you have to uphold and restore the environment, right? You've gone through this, haven't you? What Dr. Chatterjee was saying is that from a CSR standpoint, if you believe that you will plant trees and then forget about it, from the fact that the CSR focus has to be project driven, if you even do that, it's fine, but it has to be a project driven thing which is sustainable and not a one-off kind of activity. But if your business believes that as part of running its own business, it has to do this tree plantation, you're completely within principle number 5. And that's perfectly fine. Please do all that. But you may not get a CSR advantage unless it meets all the requirements of a CSR project. That's all I'm emphasizing. And in any case, environment is very much a part of Schedule 7. So I don't think there's a contradiction in terms at all. Please go through this. We can also talk offline. I don't think there's an issue at all. Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Wagli. One question that
I can't comment on somebody else. Obviously, if there is some truth in what you're saying, then the community, the stakeholders will at some stage kind of give them a rap on the matter. Yes.
No, my question is that, say, if we draw a parallel with, say, UN Global Compact and NVG, so there in UN Global Compact we have a provision of uploading a COP, Communication on Progress. So why aren't we thinking anything on NVG in that direction, that the companies were voluntarily, following these principles, they can some kind of, you have spoken about the disclosure, reporting those things. So also on some communication and progress, where you can come in and say that fine, you are doing right, you are doing, maybe you will be able to do it something more. So some kind of framework where the company